On page 10, you're going to realize that we haven't covered all the angles on the unit circle yet, okay? We forgot about 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi, okay? So we need to go and establish the coordinates on the unit circle at these particular angles, okay? The reason we haven't talked about these yet is because these are the quadrantal angles. So if you remember what that term means, these particular angles do not fall in one of the quadrants. They actually lie on the X and Y axes themselves, okay? So the good news is these are really, really simple to get the coordinates of, okay? So let's start here, okay? We're gonna start with 0 degrees, okay? So 0 degrees is right here. It's 0 radians, 0 degrees. That is coterminal with 2 pi, which is 360 degrees. Okay, so let's think in terms of 0 degrees for right now, or 0 radians. So remember what that angle looks like. So basically, you know, you would have your vertex at the origin of the circle, and then the angle, you have the initial side of the angle, and so that's going to coincide with the positive x-axis, but that's it. There's no rotation of this initial side, okay? So that is what 0 degrees is going to look like. So I'm trying to get it to fall along the x-axis here. There we go. Okay, so that would be a 0 degree angle, okay, or 0 radians. Okay, there's no rotation. It's basically the initial side. The terminal side is the initial side, okay? So here's the thing, okay? If that's your angle, you're trying to come up with the coordinates of this point, okay, the xy pair. Remember, this is the unit circle. The radius is 1, okay? If you draw this, if you're looking at the distance from the origin to this point, okay, it is exactly the distance from the center to the point on the circle. So this is a distance of 1, okay? So what you should realize here is that this distance is 1, so that means the x value here is going to be 1, okay? You don't move, you don't rotate, so there's no movement in the y direction, so the y coordinate here is 0, okay? So 1, 0 is the coordinate both at 0 radians or 0 degrees. Also, it's the same thing as same coordinates for 2 pi or 360 degrees. Okay, the difference there, remember, would be the angle. If you had 2 pi, if you had that angle, you would have to do 1 revolution, but you would end up back in the same spot. Okay, so these are really simple coordinates. Okay, so if we move on to pi over 2, okay, pi over 2 is over here. Okay, so we were trying to form the angle pi over 2, which is 90 degrees. Okay, all you would do is you would start at the origin and you would draw your initial side. It's going to coincide with the positive x-axis. The positive x-axis does not like me because it never wants to line up. Okay, there we go. And then you would do your rotation. So now you would rotate 90 degrees. And so this is what pi over 2 looks like. And so it's the same sort of thing here. Okay, so you're looking at the point on the unit circle there. Okay, that terminal side hits the unit circle right here. Okay, this is again the radius we've drawn from the origin to the point on the circle. Okay, so this vertical distance is 1 unit because that's the radius of the unit circle. Okay, so right here on the circle, the coordinates, well, we didn't move any in the x direction, so the x coordinate is 0, and we're at exactly 1 on the y-axis. Okay, so at 90 degrees or pi over 2, the coordinates on the unit circle are 0, 1. Okay, moving on to pi. Okay, so pi is over here. Okay, we get pi by making the straight angle. Okay, so we would start at the origin, draw the initial side, and then we rotate half the circle to get here. So that means the terminal side of this angle looks like this. We do that rotation. Terminal side coincides with the negative x-axis. Okay. All right. And so we are trying to figure out the coordinates of this particular point where pi is. Okay. Pi is 180 degrees, like I said. Okay. So if you're looking at this point, remember, we're in the rectangular coordinate system. This distance is 1 unit. It's the length of the radius. We've gone from the origin to the, we've gone the length of the radius because we've gone from the origin to a point on the circle, okay? But remember, we have negative x, or we have negative x values over here. So this value, this is located at -1, 0. Okay. And then lastly, if we look at 3 pi over 2, okay, to make that particular angle, you would draw your initial side, okay, and then you're going to rotate around, okay, 270 degrees, okay, and so then your terminal side would lie along the negative y-axis, okay, so you're trying to establish the coordinates where that terminal side intersects the circle. Okay, that's going to be right here. Okay, so the x coordinate here is 0. Okay, this vertical distance is 1, but remember we are below the x-axis, so the y values are negative. Okay, so the point there, the y coordinate is going to be -1. Okay, so these quadrantal angles have really simple x-y pairs to read off the unit circle, because all you have to remember is that the unit circle has a radius of 1. Okay, make sure you watch your signs. All right, so those are the coordinates. Okay, so you can do the same kind of thing if you're trying to come up with the 6 trigonometric functions for these quadrantal angles. You just have to use the coordinates off of the unit circle. Okay, so for example, I will start with 0 degrees, okay, or 0 radians. You could compute the sine, the cosine, the tangent, the cosecant, the secant, and the cotangent. Okay, so remember, what have we learned? Okay, if you're looking at the unit circle and you're looking at a particular angle and you look at the corresponding point on the unit circle, the x coordinate is the cosine of the angle. The y coordinate is the sine of the angle. So if I look at 0 degrees, okay, here are the coordinates, 1, 0, okay? So we know that the x coordinate is 1, so that means the cosine of 0 degrees is 1, okay? The y coordinate is 0, so the sine of 0 degrees is 0, okay? Once you know sine and cosine, you can get the rest of these guys, okay? We know tangent is sine over cosine, okay? So all we have to do here, this is going to be 0 divided by 1, that's 0, okay? Cosecant is 1 over sine, okay? So go to your sine coordinate, okay? So go to sine and do 1 over the sine, okay? 1 divided by 0 is a big no-no. Your paper will catch on fire, or your computer, since we're in online classes. Your computer will catch on fire here. So this is going to be undefined. Big no-no. Okay. The secant, we need to do 1 over the cosine. Okay. So go to your cosine. It's 1. So we're going to do 1 over 1. So the secant is 1. Okay. And then lastly, cotangent, we know it's 1 over the tangent. Okay. So 1 over tangent. So if we go here and we do 1 over tangent, okay, the tangent is 0, 1 over 0. Again, our computer blows up. Okay, we can't do this. Okay, so this is another undefined value here. Okay, all right, so you could complete this for all of the remaining angles. Okay, I will go ahead and fill out sine and cosine for the remaining angles, and then I will stop the video, but you can look up in the lecture notes. I'll fill this out for the when I post the filled out lecture notes, and you can check yourself. Just remember, if you've got 0 involved here and division by 0, so if 0 is in the numerator, you're good. If 0 is in the denominator, it's bad. All right, so let's work on sine and cosine. Let's look at 90 degrees. So at 90 degrees, what is going on? Our coordinates are 0, 1. Okay, so the x coordinate is 0, so the cosine will be 0. The y coordinate is +1, so that's the sine of 90 degrees, or the sine of pi over 2. Okay, and so then we just start doing, you can use these two values, okay, to calculate the remaining 4 trig functions. Okay, and like I said, that will be posted in the filled out notes. Okay, if we look at pi or 180 degrees, okay, here are the coordinates. So we know the x coordinate is going to be the cosine. The cosine of 180 degrees is -1. The cosine of pi is -1. Okay. The y coordinate is the sine. So the sine is 0. All right, moving on to 270 degrees or 3 pi over 2, okay? We know that the coordinates are 0, -1, okay? So the x coordinate is the cosine and the y coordinate is the sine, okay? Lastly, we get back to 360 or 360 degrees or 2 pi radians. That is coterminal with 0 degrees or 0 radians. So you have the same point you did for 0, okay? 1, 0 is your coordinates. So that means your cosine is going to be 1 and the sine is going to be 0, okay? And like I said, I will fill out the rest of this chart and post it to D2L.